It's really interesting serving a Chinese-speaking mission in a non-Chinese country, I guess. Chinese speaking in France isn't very common, I guess. The largest number of missionaries that were Chinese speaking in France in our mission when I was there, five of us at the most. And then the least number of us there ever was three. So we definitely weren't common. And because of that, we always served in specific areas. The university cities were where you would find the most Chinese people. So Bordeaux, Toulouse, Lyon, probably Marseille, Nice, all the big French cities that have universities, you'll probably find some Chinese students. And they come mostly to study business, economics, management. In Bordeaux, they come to study the wine trade. In Toulouse, they also go to study aeronautical engineering, because Airbus's headquarters are in Toulouse. So we meet a lot of aeronautical engineers and a lot of business students and such in all of France, really, in Bordeaux and Toulouse and all the big cities. I only ever served in Bordeaux and Toulouse, where there were Chinese people. So, and it was really different. You could find them, they were definitely there, but there weren't a whole lot of them, so you'd have to go look for them in specific parts of town, mostly around the universities. We had a really special way of contacting them and talking to them. They're just the most kind, most humble people ever. I love talking to the Chinese people in France. They always made my day somehow. Despite the fact that I couldn't really speak the language very well, they were very understanding, and they would always help you out. Anytime you asked them a question about Chinese, and they would answer it for you. And they were a lot more willing to talk to you about religion and such than the French people were. So we had a questionnaire, actually, that got introduced into the mission about at my halfway point. And it was geared mostly towards French people. The first question was something like, do you think there are a lot of problems in the world today? Do you think it would be important to have God's help with these problems? If God sent a representative or something to earth, what do you think this representative would say, for God and such? And then you would go into the Book of Mormon and a prophet and such and such and such. But that's because the French people already had kind of a Christian background. With the Chinese people, though, most of them didn't have Christian backgrounds. So we kind of changed the questionnaire as Chinese missionaries did. We changed it to, where are you from in China, What is the most famous thing in your city or in your province? Or, what is your favorite Chinese food? Do you like it here in France? What's your favorite food here in France? What's your favorite thing that you've seen here so far, that you've done here? What are you studying? What's your major? What do you want to do with that someday? You really wanted to identify with them, get them comfortable with you and such before you brought up religion. And then as soon as you got them comfortable, you'd kind of smoothly transition into religion. Like, yeah, do you have any religious beliefs? What do you believe? And sometimes they'd say, well, I'm Buddhist, or I'm Taoist, or I don't believe in God. That's just how China is, and such. And then you had the opportunity to teach a principal or something like that. Set up an appointment, get their contact information, depended on how the conversation went. But learning Chinese really was the hard part. It wasn't really talking with people. It was just learning it, because I wasn't immersed in the language. I was definitely immersed in the French language, but I spent about an hour every day, as often as I could, doing language study, Chinese study, and that was a really important part of my day. And if that part of my day didn't go well, then the rest of my day wasn't going to go well either. Because at about the halfway point of my mission president put me into the Chinese assignment full-time. I had started in it at the beginning of my mission for the first 3 transfers or so, and then I got put into French work for a while. And then about my year mark, I got put back into the Chinese work, and I didn't leave until I went to Switzerland near the end of my mission. And our instructions from President Roney were to contact only Chinese people. Don't worry about the French people. The French missionaries will get them. But your job is specifically to go out and find the Chinese people. So we had to be strategic. We had to go contacting a lot around the universities and avoid the university authorities, because they didn't like us being there at all. And anytime we saw a Chinese person, we went straight for that person. It was kind of like fishing, really, and that's what one of my companions would call it. Was we would go Chinese fishing, sort of, and having that questionnaire really helped out a lot as well. If you're a Chinese-speaking missionary going to France, don't worry about it. You might think that you're not going to learn a lot of Chinese while you're there, but you will. You definitely will. Make sure that your language study is a priority. Definitely make sure that your language study is a priority, and make sure that you have the Spirit while you're doing your language studies. Because if you don't, you're not going to learn anything, and you're not going to remember much of what you learned, and you're not going to absorb a lot of what you hear from native Chinese speakers as well. Take as many opportunities as you can to be around Chinese people. We set up a game night for our Chinese investigators and just for our Chinese friends as well. If they didn't want to learn about the gospel, that was fine. We were still going to be their friends and play games with them and such, because who knows, somewhere along the line they might remember us and remember how happy we were and how happy we were able to make them feel. And that might want to make them investigate the church again or for the first time. We also set up an English class, taught English to Chinese investigators, as well as a French class. We set up both of those. And they were huge successes. And we definitely learned a lot of Chinese just from those experiences, because they were fun, they were natural. We were around native speakers, not just with the book, And that's the best way to learn Chinese. There weren't enough Chinese investigators or members to make a branch specifically Chinese, so they had to go to church with French in French. And sometimes that would work to our advantage, because Chinese investigators would want to come because they were studying French and they wanted to be in an atmosphere where French was being spoken a lot, and they wanted to learn more French. That's what it would start out as sometimes, But working on integration between the French members and the Chinese members or investigators was really important. If they weren't getting along, or if they weren't understanding each other, or being exposed to each other, if they were being kept separate, it was not good at all. We needed them to integrate, to understand each other. And when that happened, teaching the gospel became so much easier, a lot easier, because then you could bring French members teaching with you, and not just Chinese members, who were usually always studying or something like that, and not too available.